what can I do? I mean, it sounds the organization, that sounds amazing. I obviously followed your launch yesterday. I've been talking to you and other members of the organization for a couple of weeks now, but I'm not a member. Can I become a member? Can other people become a member? How will that work?
Absolutely. So the first thing is to say you can go to our website and absolutely join the organization and sign our manifesto. Our first act is just simply a promise to be a robust national organization to stand against racism and for the advancement of Black Britain. And if you are supportive of that cause, no matter what background you may have, signing our manifesto is the first commitment. The second is your organization and resources can help. And one of the reasons that we took 12 months to launch the organization was that we needed to hire staff. We had a pre-launch CEO, Jake Ferguson. We have our current interim CEO, Miranda Grell and Sam Smethers, who are sharing the responsibilities of helping us launch. We are looking for people to join. So the first step is go to our website, go to the social media channels, and absolutely join sign the manifesto and join the organization so that you can connect with information. Secondly, if you're part of an organization that has an overlapping agenda, we did interviews with grassroots organizations, Marcus. We also did a survey of 2,000 young Black Britons and lots of research. But if you want to add your research to the evidence base and or figure out ways that your organization can join, that is also absolutely most welcome. And our BEO team are going to work very hard to follow up on all the social media feeds as well as the websites. If you look at what the 5 or 6 law firms who are part of our founding story around access to justice and strategic litigation, those are organizations who've not ever worked at scale around anti-racism or the Black British community, but they've been working together for over a year to help us launch and be a robust organization. Similarly, organizations like WPP have committed over £1 million in pro bono support to bring the level of professionalism to this launch that you can see and feel. We want to have the social media staff and to be able to reach out and capture all the organizations of the 300 plus people and organizations who are on this call alone, never mind the others who signed up online. So it's not just about you as an individual. That's one commitment. Your own organization is another, whether it's been 20 years in the fight of grassroots organizations like 5 times more, or the mental health foundations that have put out their really compelling data sets. But it's also about partner organizations and allies who are filled with good people, Marcus, but who may not know how to act and engage. And we want to help guide those organizations to say, what's the highest and best use of your resources to be able to have impact at scale? So signing the manifesto, committing your organization, whether at grassroots organizations with expertise or a new organization who wants to join, to also join and support our outcomes. And we will be coming 1 month at a time, step by step, forward with campaigns and initiatives that you can join. I'll also say this, Marcus, if there is an issue, a problem with racism or barriers that you're facing, we also want to be a resource to help get your questions answered. All Britons, we're lucky to live in a free, relatively rich economy, but yet there are people in society who don't feel secure, who don't have economic opportunities, who need more training, resources, and help, and who suffer from racism. And if you think about what's happening, particularly with our children, sometimes you just need help. And so a legal access line, very similar to the tradition of Liberty or the Good Law Project, is also an important thing that we'll launch this year, so that you can just get the help and support and information you need if you do have issues that involve racism or structural racism, so that we can give you the information to have support, but also stop those things from happening in the future.
And I've seen somebody has put in the chat all the different web links, so people should go to that. We've got the blackequityorg.com. You can go on Twitter to blackequityorg, Instagram, Black Equity Org, Facebook, Black Equity Org, all one word. And just reiterating, the website is blackequityorg.com, where you can sign up and find the manifesto. It's in the chat, so people should go there.
And we're incredibly grateful to the work that WPP, Ogilvy, Mindshare, many organizations that are professionals in PR and communications, but serve a diverse business audience and creative audience. But we also worked with Black PR firms. We also worked with Black creatives around the content. And it's a really good example, Marcus, of how we're trying to combine anyone who wants to do the work, right? That's our criteria. Anyone who wants to do the work in an evidence-based way with real skills and capability, we'll put those combinations together and hopefully, start by producing a launch and platforms that can be, as accessible on global social media as well as in our content follow-up. But it's a great example of the kind of partnerships that we want to apply in other areas like criminal justice or housing.
So sometimes racism can seem a bit overwhelming when we just talk about racist society. And so I'm curious, you talked about campaigns. Are you going to be focusing on any aspect, maybe police? You mentioned police, you just mentioned housing. Is there something you're going to be focusing on to start off with? Is it the entire society? What's the focus to start off with, if there is one?
I want to come back to something David said, which we hope this is a generational response to these issues. So the agenda is broad and it is complex, and we believe that if we concentrate on 6 areas that are interrelated, but that are particularly areas where British outcomes are behind where they should be, and where we would like to, and we believe that systemic barriers are part of the reason why our outcomes are still poor. The first is economic empowerment, using the data sets that we already have, New Economics Foundation, the ONS data from the government, the police report yesterday. There are lots and lots of examples where the economic engagement of households is a major issue, and we want to see improvements in the average earnings, the savings rate, as well as wealth creation for Black people. If you want to save a little bit more money over time and have an asset, be it your home or a business, that's a 5 or 10-year project. So our goal is to take a longer term view, but we're concentrated on improving economic outcomes for households as they are. The vast majority of Black British households rent. So it's good to have efforts around owning your home, building equity and assets, but most people today rent. And so high quality renting and fair renting, particularly during a cost of living crisis, is where you have to start. Most people have to look at their incomes and ensure that it is a sustainable income level for households. It's very hard, even before COVID and the economic crisis we're going through, for families to have the meat. We know the rate of poverty in the Black British community and fragile incomes is much higher. And this is just going to jolt us into more fragility. The national unemployment rate across all groups is the lowest it's been in many years, but the unemployment rate amongst Black young people, particularly age 16 to 26, and particularly men and boys, young men and boys, is double what it was before. And so we're in a crisis around economic empowerment and need to work with more organizations, including employers, things like the Race at Work Charter, to make systemic progress. It's okay if your income goes up a little bit or my income goes up a little bit, but we have to focus on the average household income, benefit structure, and how do we improve that? And skills and training, and I think also launching more Black businesses are going to be a big part of that. The second piece is criminal justice and strategic litigation. And here, we have David, Marcia, and others with legal backgrounds, plus the firms that contributed pro bono support helping us. But we couldn't find other examples of civil rights organizations that had the legal defense piece specifically for Black Britons. It's covered by some agendas like Liberty or the Good Law Project. And of course, we have Michael McIntyre and huge giants, many of them allies, who've looked out for the interests of diverse people and people of color. And I include Stonewall and many Jewish organizations in that. But we don't have an organization that's focused on strategic litigation and systemic reduction of systemic barriers for Black people. And so that'll include an access to justice line that all citizens, but particularly Black citizens, can call. It will include strategic litigation to change the rules. One of the reasons why the ANC or Stonewall or the Southern Leadership Conference Project or the NAACP as case examples have been successful is because they've tried to solve not just the individual case of George Floyd or the individual case of child Q and girl Olivia, but they've tried to say, what are the rules in schools? What are the rules in policing? What are the training gaps that mean that this could happen again? So those two areas, economic empowerment and strategic litigation and legal defense, are two areas, Marcus, where the gaps relative to Black people in Britain are the biggest. The other four areas we're concentrating on, and I'll just mention them briefly: housing, education, mental and physical health and wellness and well-being, and of course, representation, culture, media, sport, the arts, but also representation in front of and behind the camera, and celebrating greatness in our community. You know, those are areas where many organizations, including grassroots organizations, have worked for many years. But what we're often missing, Marcus, is scale. You know, you can have Fathers to Fathers doing great work up in Hackney. You can have terrific programs in Cardiff working with Black British citizens, or in Aberdeen and Edinburgh and Glasgow, but then they can't scale to reach the whole city. They can't scale and share lessons across a network of schools like Teach First. And so helping grassroots organizations scale, you know, the terrific work that Ubele does, or Fathers to Father, to use another example, you know, we want to help scale those examples. So those are the 6 areas. They're covered on our website in some detail. And if you have particular interests and expertise, absolutely open to that. So it's a broad agenda. It's an ambitious agenda, but we don't apologize for that, because we're trying to make a generational change in outcomes. And so that's the evidence-based approach that we think is needed to add to the good work. Some of it successful, some of it frustrating, but to add to the good work that organizations are already trying.
As a journalist, I have to ask you this question, because I've been taught for a long time to always follow the money. So I have to ask, how are you funded?
Our original funding came from a small group of Black British philanthropists who just donated money to allow us to found the organization, in addition to the pro bono support of law firms, so that we launched with good governance and structure, transparency, and the rigor of any organization. We expect to be here for a generation. And that's part of our foundation story, Marcus, because it's very important that Black British people have agency. We're not looking for our allies to come save us. We just want equal opportunities to any family and any child in Britain. And so it's about understanding what we think the community needs and what the evidence tells us we should be focused on. And after that, we're inviting huge amounts of partnerships and organizations to donate time, money, and partnerships, your expertise, to join us. And we've been fortunate that we've been able to reach out to some strategic foundations and partners to be able to do that, some of whom were with us at our launch yesterday. And I think in the chat, if you don't mind, JK and Rudaba, if you can include the Open Society Foundation and the 3 or 4 foundation strategic partners who've started by giving us unrestricted funding towards open democracy, freedom of speech, and helping us to build a professional platform on which this organization can stand. We will then raise money around specific programs. And Sky is an example of a founding partner who will work around an initiative of Black businesses and supply chain. We'll work with the business in the community, BITC, and the Race at Work Charter and the Race Ratio Charter of CBI, hundreds of the biggest organizations in Britain, probably accounting for 80% or 90% of the private employment in Britain outside the public sector, hundreds of whom have signed up to pay equity along racial lines, and many other good principles of an anti-racist and inclusive environment. And we hope they'll become partners in helping to fund the organization, helping to fund programs, and also lend their expertise and capability. But once the organization is funded and sustainable, and that allows us our independence, because who pays your bills, Marcus, influences a lot what you do and your choices. And as long as, my dad used to say, as long as you live under my roof, you have to follow my rules. And so as young people, just like my 18-year-old and 16-year-olds, our boys yearn to be independent because they want to make their own rules and live their own lives. And they might rather have a really small income, but get to spend their time the way they want to. The freedom that comes with independence, when you even have a little bit of room, a little bit of money in a room of your own, as Virginia Woolf would say, is you get to sit under your own sky and that agency. And that's important for us as an organization. So financial independence, so that we can be independent of government, independent of any one funder or any influential funder, independent of political parties, so that we can speak truth to power without fear or favor, be evidence-based, so that it's not about what's happened to my sons or my experience or your experience, but we can use the evidence and see the injustices that are happening to Black Britons. We're not making any of this up. And that we can also have enough resources to put some care around it, Marcus. Our community is one that is born of great achievement, but also great trauma. And we're only able to begin to process these things now. I mean, speaking this language in a public forum as a leading business person in Britain, I don't think I had permission to do that 2 years ago in a way that would be heard and actually allow the institutions that I work with to help, as opposed to just be empathetic. And so our independence, which starts right from where you started, which is where do you get your money from, is something we're going to be incredibly committed to, transparent about, but make no apology for wanting to have the scale of resources that allow us to be independent in our point of view and our operation, able to hire the best talent. We have a staff of 10 or 12 folks who are excellent and tremendous. And we are also launching with several open positions, Marcus. We are looking for a CEO. We had a lion, and still have, as a strategic advisor, a pre-launch CEO in Jake Ferguson. And we are looking for a full-time CEO to help lead the organization and consider this launch moment an invitation. The microsite there is live, and I'm sure JK and Miranda and the team will put that in the chat. We are looking for a head of engagement to work on community engagement, a full-time position that'll work across national engagement, across not only the 4 nations, but our international network. We are looking for administrative support to help in the office. And we are also looking for the HR and operations team. We've got Nicola, who's a wonderful head of operations, because we launched the organization with a little bit of resources around care and wellness, not only for our staff, but also for our board, because we know how tough this fight is going to be. And so we're opening with a great team, but we're also opening with 3 or 4 open positions, because there are 300-400 people on this call alone who could add to our talent base. The other openings we have, Marcus, are for trustees. So we have 12 fantastic trustees. You heard from David earlier. You've seen David Lammy, Karen, Marcia. The names of our trustees and the link can also be added to the chat. It's a very diverse group, but it's by no means a closed shop. And I'm most proud of the fact that there are as many community organizers like Yvonne, the CEO of Ubele, or Marcia, who is a lioness in her championing civil rights and justice. There are going to be 2 permanent seats for young trustees, one of which is Athian, who is 19 and already a warrior for justice and a warrior for excellence as he takes his A-levels and completes his formal education, but has already started his journey in civil leadership. So, but the other youth role is absolutely open. We're looking for great young people to join the organization, and I think we'll hear from a couple of them later in this dialogue. And so we're very open, but we don't make any apology for having a bias for Black British talent at our foundation. But we are absolutely open to, and will also have ally organizations as well as people join the organization. And the organization is diverse, in its profiles. And we know as a Black community, we've always been very diverse. The Black British diaspora is multicultural in its own state. I mean, even to say, what does being Black British mean, particularly with my broad American accent, it's already a very broad church, and we know how to live into that intersectionality. We're comfortable with all the different things we are. We just have to help majority society understand who we are, that we are they, we are them, we're one culture. We want many of the same things. And so We just want to be open to new talents. And so we're deliberately opening with openings on a mature organization, a mature ambition, but absolutely openings on our trustee board, openings in our organization, and actually openings on our ideas, because we are not the experts. We want to become like the mega conveners and drive outcomes, but we're not trying to do it all or raise all the money for BEO. We're trying to enable and scale good ideas that are out there in the marketplace, and then look at the evidence of progress.
I'm so happy that you brought out the diversity of what a Black British identity is, because one of the things that, for example, I was concerned even just a year ago when I held the first memorial for George Floyd, was the idea that maybe we were leaning too much on an African-American experience, and we weren't, properly acknowledging and recognizing some of the horrors which have happened of death in police custody in Britain, which should not be forgotten. So I just wanted to, my small research is that I understand that you're based in Britain, you're dual national, you're British. Have I got that correct, that you are?
Yes, and I don't think you can become a proper Dame unless you are a British citizen as well. So as I say, the tip's in the title. Okay. But I use that only as a joke to highlight that, my husband and I have been in Britain for many years. I think 25 years or so. He'll correct me somewhere on the Zoom. And we were and have been, very committed to social justice and engagement in many different forms and fashions. I also chair Teach First, which is one of the largest educational charities, and is particularly committed to diversity of representation in teaching, school leadership, etc. Equally important, we have two boys, teenagers, 18 and 16, who are born and raised in London, where we've been based. And, if we are American in our accents, we're British in our sensibilities, particularly with our boys, and they live and experience just like anyone else on the call. And the final thing I would say is that I've lived and worked all across this country and all across the diversity of experiences that people have, some in large diverse communities, say in our cities where the majority of Black Britons live. But that's not all London, right? That's you have super concentrations of folks in neighborhoods and communities in cities. And it's particularly important to get it right where we exist in numbers, because that's where our kids are being educated and where services are being provided or not, as the cases might be. That said, the rural experience for Black Britons is also extremely important. And you have everything from the engagement and community that you might feel in communities within Cardiff or in Birmingham, Manchester, or London, but you also have many Black Britons who are integrated into rural communities. And as we've seen in some of the recent cases in Wales, might have some really searing positive experiences that shape them. And David Olusoga was speaking so powerfully yesterday on Channel 4 about being a product of a white middle-class working culture as well as Black British culture. So we know that there's a diversity of experience as well as a diversity of cultural backgrounds. And in the same way, I'm not going to judge anybody by what they look like or what they sound like or how much physical ability or mental ability they may or may not have. We're going to try and just give them a platform to reach their full potential. And so any good examples of where that's been done well, and when the NAACP and the Legal Defense Fund or the Southern Leadership Conference, the organization that Martin Luther King Jr. founded when he was 26 years old, what it is are great examples, but that's no different than Liberty or Stonewall as powerful, successful examples of over 20-year civil rights organizations, or great examples in Brazil, the ANC post-94 particularly, and other examples. We'll learn from anyone, but when the Black British community puts their stamp on this thing, it's going to be our own stamp. It's not going to be any other way. And what we know from the excellence and the way it's celebrated around the world is when we scale up, when we do our thing, whether it's on TikTok or in music lyrics or sport, culture, arts, business, people you've heard of, people you don't heard of, we are just so tremendous. And we want people to see the excellence in the community and celebrate the greatness, but not be fooled that that represents what the average Black British family is going through. Because the profiles and resources and convening power that BEO hopes to bring is to the benefit of all Black Britons and therefore all British society. It's not just for shakes or looks or PR. This is about real progress on the ground, which is why it's going to take more time.
Okay, I'm about to bring in some other people who that are on the Zoom as well, and I've just got one more really. It's a personal question, so you can dodge it if you want. 9 minutes and 29 seconds was a really long time. What were you thinking about?
Marcus, you have to understand that I have children. You know, my parents were civil rights leaders. They were systematically civil rights activists. My father went into the military because he couldn't get a job. You know, unusually for his generation, he had a 4-year degree and he couldn't find a job anywhere. And so he went into the military unenlisted originally because that was the only opportunity to him. My mother made so many sacrifices, but she was a teacher and really valued education. And I'm only here because of the access and opportunities that they provided. We have 2 boys whose experience is very different to ours, being British, and could change, their lives could change. You know, it's like sliding doors and the closing of a door. And so when I saw George Floyd and really dialogue with David and others on that call, you know, I see my brother, I see my cousin, I see my sons. You know, when I hear the stories of the disparity in outcomes in pregnancy and maternity wards for Black women, I know if I didn't have a title and a job and a platform and an ability to convene resources, there's no difference. That stuff, you can't take any of that stuff to the grave. And so for me, I just reflect on the fact that other people saw the humanity that I've seen every single day. What my family's been through, what George Floyd's family's been through, and that Steve can see in his prosecutorial team, that the Good Law Project can see, and that my fabulous staff and trustees can see, that it's not us. It's a universal problem that we are going to need everybody's help to solve. And that's how I think about it, is the human rights violation, how that could be any one of us. You know, but for the grace of God, go I, go you. And that moves me to action. It's just not good enough, Marcus. We can't stay in situations where 9 minutes and 26 seconds and the belligerency and the nerve of hiding behind a badge to use institutional defense of your role to allow that murder to take place, that those children could only video and not interrupt a crime taking place. Other officers couldn't even interrupt. It has to stop. We can't keep going like this. And so that's what I was thinking during that 9 minutes and 26 seconds. You know, I was moved to tears 2 years ago, and, you know, with our trustees and organization, moved to action. And that's what today is really about: action to reduce and eliminate systemic racism and improve outcomes for Black Britons.
Okay. Vivian, thank you so much. We keep talking about the generation and the generational shift. So we have to now talk to the younger generation. So I'm now going to bring in another person. So thank you so much again, Vivian. I'm going to bring in Athian Akec, who hopefully will come full screen, a 19-year-old activist and a former member for Camden UK Youth Parliament and a prominent voice representing the concerns of young people in London. I'm really hoping he's going to go full screen any second. He's campaigned on issues such as Brexit and climate change and obviously anti-racism. So hopefully he will come on.
Yeah, hi.
Okay, I can hear him. I can't see you, Athian, and I can see you now. Fabulous. You've been listening to Dame Vivian Hunt. What are your immediate thoughts and response to hearing her?
I think everything that's been laid out kind of demonstrates and shows the importance of the vision of BEO in terms of getting the energy that we had, in terms of the fact that people were protesting in a way that we've never seen before in nearly every corner of the world. And there was a massive outpouring of emotion, energy, and desire across generations to bring about justice. But I think we can't confuse energy with the capacity to bring the organizational and political structure that's required to tackle years and years and years of systemic racism. So I think it's constantly inspiring to hear Dame Vivian Hunt's vision for this organization and how it can play a pivotal role in terms of bringing these ideas and change that we need into things that are practical and applicable and can actually push us forward into transferring this energy into a longer term movement for against racism in the UK.
Chris, everybody we've had, I think it's safe to say that everybody was at least over 40. I suspect everyone else who's spoken so far is over 50. I'm not sure. So how do you think your generation views, and I know it's just one person, but how do you feel that people have talked about this generational shift? How do you think that your generation is viewing anti-racism, is viewing BLM differently than possibly, as I said, I'm 51, as people like myself or David Olusoga, Vivian, etc.
I think part of it is seeing the kind of waves of various different movements for racial justice and having an element of distance from these movements in terms of the entire spectrum of what it's been, what different traditions of anti-racism have been, from the kind of attempts by people like Martin Luther King to pursue kind of economic justice through racism, or if you look at not radical, that's the wrong word, other parts of the, for example, Black Power movement, we've kind of seen an entire historical spectrum of what it's like to fight against racism. But I think what the most clear thing, I think, is the sense of moral clarity and how our access to information over social media has meant that these realities are undeniable, and we you don't need an element of convincing that systemic racism is real, because you have an entire kind of vision into any corner of the world through your mobile phone. But I think the important thing when we talk about generational struggle is that we have to remember that as much as it's about the capacity for young people to bring moral clarity and energy and ideas and a sense of passion to the movement, I think everything we need to do coming forward is an intergenerational struggle in which everyone can play their role, but recognizing that the kind of coalitions across generations are necessary towards bringing the energy, but also the experience in terms of fighting for racial justice.
I'm going to bring in, because we're short for time, I'm going to bring in another person. But before you go, I understand that you're sitting your first A-level tomorrow. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, well, yeah. I'm sure everybody is going to wish you good luck and hope you do your best. And thank you so much for taking time out to actually to be with us. So yeah, that's absolutely fantastic. Yeah, okay. All right. I'd like to bring in Chantelle Lunt now, an advocate for racial equality, having experienced racism throughout her life, particularly during her service as a police officer. She is the founder of the Merseyside BLM Alliance, a group which she established at a time when BLM was moving out of the news cycle. Merseyside BLM Alliance has become one of the most proactive anti-racist groups in Merseyside. And so my question, so first of all, welcome, Chantelle.
Hi.
And my question for you is, as an organization, how do you hope to work with BEO?
So I'm really excited to work with BEO. I'd say as, a grassroots organisation who, first we have BLM, which was very much the reactive response to racism. And then we've set up a grassroots CIC called Merseyside Alliance for Racial Equality. It's a lot harder to navigate that terrain of, how do we move in these spaces? How do we access funding? Who are the people we need to speak to? How do we access that network? And, it's inspiring, and it gives me hope that there are people who've walked this path before us who are like, you know what, we're going to help you. We've got the resources, we've got the conversations, we've got those networks, and, we're not going to be all paternalistic and say, okay, you've done that on the ground, and now we're going to have these conversations that are actually opening up the doors and saying, come in, we want to speak to you, we want to listen, and above all, we want to help and support you.
Right. So there can sometimes be some tension with regards to community based organizations and what can be seen as larger organizations as well. Do you have any concerns about BO, or is it, you know, all good? What would you like to say to Dame Vivian with regards, or anybody working at BO, how you'd want them to work with you?
I suppose my main concerns are, obviously, as you can probably tell from the accent, I'm not from London, and quite often when we have conversations about race and about the police, they are quite London centric. And, you know, a lot of us who live outside of London, be it in the Northwest or in Liverpool, are quite marginalised, and we experience the same issues as those in London, just on a slightly smaller scale because of where we sit geographically. Additionally, we know that the Black community are massively working class and where we do sit socially and economically, and I am really, you know, anxious that we do have a working class focus, that we do have a focus on our most vulnerable members of our community, especially our care experience Black community, where we are massively overrepresented. Now, there may concerns, and, you know, I've expressed these concerns in stakeholder meetings, and the bit that gives me hope is I don't mince my words. I will tell you what I'm thinking, because I'm about achieving change, and I really do want to achieve this change in my lifetime. I don't want to tell my children that they've got to pick up this fight. And I spoke very candidly and freely and said exactly what I was thinking at the meeting. And sometimes when you do that, you don't hear from organisations again, because they want criticism, but they want it sugar-coated and watered down. And it was very, you know, gave me hope that BO actually continue to reach out, continue to engage, continue to want to talk to me. And that showed me a commitment to not only listen, but to take on board those concerns and to act upon them. So I am hopeful, and even watching that video again, it's one of the few things giving me hope this week, after Ian Taylor, after Child Q Olivia, and after the police report, which is basically more of the same things. You know, coming into this space, watching the video is actually making me think, stop looking up, stop looking at these organisations that are white-led and that have got no investments in changing racism or dismantling systemic racism. It's spaces like this, it's within our community that we are going to achieve that change. So this has given me hope this week.
No, I completely hear you. I'm talking to you from Glasgow myself right now, and what was so nice is that I had a parents' evening that I had to go to, and so speaking to BEO, they were saying, you know, absolutely, they recognise my needs as a parent as well. So, you know, we come with, you know, complexities to our identities and lives, and we're all over we have to be nationwide. We are nationwide. And so that was really good to hear. Okay, what I'd like to do, and we're just absolutely running out of time, so thank you so much, Chantelle, is I've seen that we've got the 300 to 400 people that we've had some amazing people that just have joined us. I see that we've got Lester Holloway from The Voice. I just wanted to recognise, I won't be able to recognise them all and be able to shout to everybody, but we've got Patrick Vernon. I see we've got Gus John. We've got people from The Guardian. We've got people from The Mirror. We've got an amazing, every newspaper outlet. We've got some amazing people. I'm not saying they're representing those organisations, but they have joined us. And so it's absolutely wonderful. We've also got, I understand that Diane Abbott as MP is also on the Zoom, which is fantastic. And I just wanted to really briefly bring in two other MPs. The first one is Bel Ribeiro Addy, MP from the Labour Party. It was very good to see Bella. So thank you very much, Bella, earlier. And sorry that we made you go full screen unexpectedly, but thank you. So Belle, can you just really briefly, is there a message that you'd like to give everybody, or a message that you'd like to say to BEO?
I promised I would keep it brief, so I will. I'm really pleased that the Black Equity Organisation is coming into being today after the resurgence of the Black Lives Matter movement a few years ago. I think we've seen what is probably the biggest kind of organisation in campaigning for social justice that I've probably seen in my lifetime, and people actually beginning to understand that it's not enough just not to be racist themselves, but that they have to be anti-racist, and they actually had to do something. And I think it's really key that the BEO is founded on the principles of self-organisation, much like the NAACP of the USA, not because our allies are not important, obviously they're integral to the struggle, but it's because it's important that everybody recognises that racial equality benefits us all as a society. But Black self-organisation, Black representation are so key to what we need. And the idea that Black people can't lead or be the architects of their own advancement is something that holds us back as much as the individual inequalities that we face. And you were absolutely right, Marcus, when you said it seems that we often hold onto or look towards the USA, but BEO's recognised the UK has its own civil rights struggle, a rich civil rights struggle, and please see they'll be working on building on this radical agenda with all of those grassroots organisations that have brought us thus far, bringing us to our logical conclusion, that end inequality that we need. So wishing BEO all of the best and looking forward to see all the great work that's going to be coming out in the years to come.
Thank you so much. And what Vivian and David before her have stressed that BEO is not party political. And so having a Labour MP, I'd like just to bring in Albie Amankona, co-founder of Conservatives Against Racism for Equality. Albie, do you have a message for the people on the call and BEO?
Right, I think you can hear me.
Fabulous.
I got through a
Yes.
pandemic and I still can't work a mute button, so I do apologise. I just wanted to say thank you so much for having me and congratulations on the launch of BEO. So I'm not an MP, but I am a political commentator and the co-founder of Conservatives Against Racism. And we were founded in the fateful summer of 2020 by myself and BEO trustee Siobhan Aarons. We're an independent group of party activists and Conservative MPs building a conservative approach to tackling racial disparities and promoting equality of opportunity, because we believe that combating racial discrimination and unlocking the potential of everyone in Britain isn't a matter of left and right, but one of right and wrong. And we need to work together to build the conditions in Britain where people can simply be themselves and get on in life without discrimination, so we can all just focus on important things like serving our communities, being productive in the economy, finding joy with our loved ones. So I really welcome the progress that the government made earlier on this year with the publication of the Inclusive Britain strategy. I look forward to the progress of what this organisation can do and the change that you'll lead, the transformative action that we can all contribute to by working together. So I think we should celebrate our differences as we work towards our shared goal. And now let's get to work, because there's work to be done.
Thank you so much, Albie. Okay, that is rounding off tonight. So if JK, if you could just bring me to full screen or bring other people in, that'd be wonderful. Slowly. While I wait for that, I just want to thank a few people. So you've heard myself, you heard Dame Vivian talk about JK, asking her to do this or do that. So first of all, I'd like to thank JK, who is actually instrumental tonight. I'd like to thank Yasmin, Timmy, Ashki, Eva, Sam, and Miranda, who have been absolutely amazing in helping this event go so smoothly today and to happen, basically. I'd also just like to thank everybody for coming. It's the second year that I've done this, and the 9 minutes, 29 seconds for me has always been, it's an incredibly long period of time. And it's something to dwell on and think about. So again, thank you, everybody. I'm going to ask if we can not have to close down the Zoom straight away, because if people want to can take themselves off mute, I think if people can talk to each other, because I said this is a community, and with that in mind, I've just been DM'd that there's a few people I missed off the thanks. So I just want to thank that before we end. So it's always a way, so rushes and getting to the end that I forget a few names. So obviously I'd like to thank some of the trustees who are with us today, which is Karen Blackett, Marcio Willis Stewart, David Olusoga, obviously, And I'd just like to thank Vivian Hunt again for taking part. And of course, joining us all the way from Minnesota, Steve Schleicher. So that was absolutely wonderful, and definitely wishing Athian Akec the best in his A-levels. So people can leave now if they want to. You don't have to leave. If you're seeing people on the call that you haven't seen for years. I know I'm definitely seeing some people that I haven't seen for years, so I'm going to stay on for a bit longer. But thank you very much. It's officially come to an end, but we're not shutting down.
Well, Marcus, not without our thanking you as well. Bless you, and thank you for convening this vigil and just allowing us to be in this space. And it is wonderful to see the range of people who are on, but they're here because you've convened us. So thank you so much on behalf of BEO and the broader community.
Thank you so much. Okay. I'd just like to say, I'm just going to name a few names. I'm just seeing, I see Eva Simpson. I don't think my sister-in-law's joined me this time. They were. I'm really upset. I'm going to have to call them. I don't know where they were today, but if you are there, Rosie or Monica, DM me. Message me. I missed you this year. How are you, Vivian?
I'm well, Marcus. I do want to say, given that we have members of the media on the call, that the formal event is over. And so if we could have our guests who've come on to to hear from Steve Schleicher or cover the launch of BEO, it is the time for those organizations and groups to step off. And I would just ask the group that is going to stay in the space and have a dialogue to be mindful of that. I think, safe spaces have to be understood, transparent, and safe. So I will say that. And Marcus, you're a journalist, so you know that better than I do. And I'm well within myself. I'm in America. I'm getting a chance to spend some time with my family, who I haven't seen that much during COVID, but able to join you with the wonders of technology. So I'm well. I'm feeling calm despite the reality of this anniversary. It's a moment of hope with the organization, but it is still one where I think about George Floyd's family and the ongoing struggles for justice. So I'm in two places, but I'm well with it, but I'm well in both of those spaces, if that makes any sense.
And it's wonderful to see you, Lester Holloway. You've just flashed up on my screen. Give us a wave, Lester. If people don't know Lester, he's the editor of The Voice and has been a personal someone I've looked up to for years, and he's doing amazing work. There's so many people. I see Simone Byrne, who is fantastic, and she turned your camera on, Simone. All right, that's great. It's, as I said, it's just recognizing friends. Oh, and Babita. People who don't know Babita worked at Channel 4, has moved on to Fremantle, and is fighting the good fight to make sure that our media is more diverse, and is one of the most beautiful people that I've worked with. I struggle trying to make the media more diverse, and Babita is a close friend who definitely helps make the media more diverse. I don't know how you went full screen, Babita. How did that happen?
Thank you, Marcus. I think I keep flipping on to say bye because I'm actually still in the office. I feel really bad because there's somebody who wants to hoover up and is waiting for me to leave. So I actually need to go. But thank you for your kind words. Thank you for bringing us together. Thank you for holding us safe and really precious space for us all as well to share and come together. So thank you.
Okay. No, and it feels like family. I've just seen Nick and him. This just feels like a family gathering for me. How you doing, Nick?
I'm good, my dear brother. Wonderful to see you again. Well done. Congratulations. And what an organization this is. Wow, beautiful. Well done.
No, seriously. And I'm now, I feel that everybody just needs to know each other. And if you don't, it's almost like when you go to church and you're just shaking hands with everybody at one point and just seeing. So I want to make sure that we are community. And I've just seen Miranda Wayland. So Miranda, give us a wave. And Miranda's somebody else who I absolutely love. Miranda's just left the BBC, and I think everybody has their sympathies and their empathy goes to you, Miranda, because I know that working at the BBC can, for all of us, can be difficult, but it'd be difficult wherever broadcaster. I don't want to single out the BBC. All of a sudden, I'm worried that there's going to be journalists saying Marcus Ryder says that working at the BBC is terrible. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. Before, I just want to make sure I get that straight. Okay, I don't want that to be the headline of what's been an amazing night, you know. But thank you, Miranda, for joining us. How are you?
I'm really well, and I've absolutely enjoyed this event. It's my first one, so it was really powerful. And as you said, that 9 minutes and 29 seconds really, really touched me. So it was brilliant to be a part of OBE's international launch, but also to be a part of this community. So thank you.
And you're at Amazon now, right?
I am at Amazon. I'm actually going to talk to them about OBE tomorrow morning. So this was good.
Good. All right, we need to make sure that we get even more and better representation at Amazon. I'm sure you're going to fight a good fight for us, Miranda, aren't you?
Definitely.
All right. If anybody else wants to say anything, I'm going to be jumping off in about 5 minutes, but if anybody wants to just jump in, feel free.
Could I say something, Marcus? It's Bren here.
Of course.
Thank you. I just volunteer in my local community in Gloucester, really, and just try and help where I can. I've been doing some work with diverse communities for about 25 years, really. And going back to the point that Vivian was making about actually what's the impact at that very grassroots level as well. I think the point is we can have that, you know, that big strategic stuff, and that's so important, but actually it's like when you walk the streets, whatever really, what people feel there's a difference today and feels a difference tomorrow. So I thought about actually that's great, you know, but words to action, really, what are you going to do? So I'm going to speak to my friends that have like local community newsletters that go out specific for all populations, but also have a focus on diverse communities. And I'm going to obviously join as a member, but I'm going to put those details on, but also probably a couple of lines, because sometimes when you see the details, kind of like people don't know where it's coming from, but I'm just going to put, you know, it's a phenomenal organisation to join with a phenomenal vision and passion for delivery. Thank you.
And I see people are being a lot more organised than I am, just randomly, and have actually politely raising their hands, which I tell my son to, and then I've just randomly gone. So, Kirsty, I see that you've raised your hands. Kirsty, do you want to say anything?
Hello. Yeah, it was just a quick one because I can see it's being recorded tonight. So will that be available after for people that couldn't get in?
Yes.
Lovely. I will let them know. I've got quite a few from my work that have joined.
I know, I've got too many people. I've got too many people. I've got a message straight after this. Patrick, it's amazing that you're here. I'm so happy that you're here.
If you noticed, I was actually traveling. I was on 2 buses and a train because I was at the US Embassy this evening with the local branch of Stamp to Racism, and we took the knee outside the US Embassy and just constantly recognising the 2nd anniversary of the murder of George Floyd. Just want to congratulate everyone involved in establishing BEO, Dame Vivian, the board, the staff, particularly Jake and others. And obviously, I've been talking to you, and any way I can support BEO is great. I think we do need something like this. It's quite clear that in 2022, that the impact of structural racism is not simply, and ironically, this today is also the 10th anniversary of the establishment of hostile violent policy, which has had major impacts on, on the Windrush generation and others. So we've got a lot of work to do. It's great to see a lot of people online, and just make this our time in Britain. So well done, everyone, and Marcus, yourself, and everyone else. So thanks, and keep up. And I think next year is going to be even more significant because it'll be the 75th anniversary of Empire Windrush. So let's make it even bigger and better, not just simply calling out the injustices, but acknowledging those elders and make sure young people are part of that history and that legacy that we need to ensure.
Yes. Patrick, every time you talk, we always threaten that we have to have that coffee. We have to be up. I don't think I've seen you for maybe decades. It might even be more than.
No,
Yeah.
with all due respect, I saw you in Brixton at your book launch last year.
Oh my God! Yes.
With your fantastic mother.
Yes.
Who I love and adore.
Everybody loves my mother, but that's another story. But everybody does love my mother. All right. That's it. God, that's terrible. Yes. Thank you. Ellen, I see you had your hand up. You left, and then I was worried I was going to call on you, Ellen, but you come back.
Hello. Yeah, I came back just checking on my food for tonight. We've got to stay fed along with the fight. So I'm here to speak to
cakes.
Oh yes, the Jaffa cakes, the trusty Jaffa cakes. I'm speaking tonight just because I'm so happy to be a part of this space and a part of this conversation, and to see everybody a part of it as well. It gives me hope in these times that we're living in at the moment. I'm speaking as the granddaughter of a Nigerian immigrant that came over in the 60s.
Ooh, Ellen just vanished. Hopefully she'll come back. But in the meantime, Linda, you got your hand up.
Hi, thank you. It was a question really for BEO. I don't know if Vivian's still here. I was wondering how BEO will actually select certain causes, particular fights, different cases. Is there a way, I don't know if it's going to be something that's on the website, but as a parent that's currently trying to do a fight alone, I'd quite like to know how you would reach out to the organisation.
Linda, tell me a little bit more about your context. I can see your background, if that's okay to share on the call, and then I'll answer your question.
Yeah, okay. There's currently quite a large external review going into a government organisation. Specifically, it's my son's been a catalyst of that external review, and it's into the culture of the organisation. My son, unfortunately, is no longer with us, and so there's a lot of legal stuff relating to that. And the catalyst has been like an internal investigations, which has then led to an external review. So it's just really how I can go about holding the organisation accountable. I have reached out to lots of legal and human rights activists and what have you, but yeah, not been able to have any support really.
Linda, first, my prayers and support for you and your family as you continue to fight for justice, but also go through the both grief and renewal process. And I thank you for sharing that on the call. That absolutely can put you in touch with Miranda Grell. She'll DM you directly, or you have her information. And if you can just trust us to find your email and get back in touch with you, we will follow up individually.
Linda, we'll have your email because you registered, so we'll get in touch.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, but we'll want to hear more about the case and then understand that. But what you represent is exactly what we want. The hotline and calls, or if you have an issue or a concern or a fight you feel like you're fighting on your own or want to learn more about, we absolutely want to hear about it. And then we'll make the decisions on the cases we'll support in strategic litigation. But the point is we want to provide advice and support for everyone. The second thing is, Linda, some of the things that public sector organizations are doing, like the policing reports or the report on maternity, or let me take another example, the access to social wellness and mental health services for Black Britons that was on one of the LinkedIn profiles. Sometimes there's some very good ideas and resources that just don't get shared across, let's say, public sector. What the police are doing around anti-racism might be helpful for fire, might be helpful in schools. And so there's two things. One is making sure you get justice in individual case and the support that you need. We'll try and answer questions and get that to you. And then two, we're trying to stop the patterns, because that's where we can then begin to say, where in the system does the data tell us some of these things need to change? So thank you for sharing that, and we'll be absolutely in touch to help you, but also see what else might be needed so that these things don't happen again.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you. Appreciate that.
I'm going to wrap up in a minute, but Ellen's back.
Ellen, you
Hi.
left us with a cliffhanger. You said, I'm the granddaughter of a Nigerian immigrant, and we were right there.
My phone died. Damn this technology. So yeah, I'm the granddaughter of a Nigerian immigrant, and he came over in the 60s, just after the Windrush, and we all know what those times were like. I'm not going to delve too much into that history right now, but just as an individual myself, and being present at the 2020 marches that we've all been speaking about tonight, that was such a pivotal moment. Like, we've all recognized that the amount of people that came out that time was just a very powerful moment, and I'm glad that it has been recognized. However, seeing the progress that has been made, and seeing Dame Vivian Hunt and Chantelle, Lunt, and all of the other organizers and trustees of the BO organization, it's just amazing for me and inspiring, and it gives me so much hope to know that people are still pushing on just like myself, and it just gives me so much faith in the future and how we can all move together in such a positive way in all of our communities, because rightly so, like it has been stated, this goes right across from London and reaches out across the UK. I'm speaking as a foster child that has been in foster care from 2 years old, grew up in Somerset, and it's funny because my grandfather settled in Hackney and his family ended up in the depths of Somerset. So yeah, that's a funny kind of perspective to have, and I've learned a lot in my journey and my little life of 25 years, and what I've seen and what I've learned is that change does need to happen, and I'm just so happy and so inspired to know that there's this many people alongside or in front or behind or wherever. I'm just happy that we're all here and doing something, and something I've just created is something called Sisters and Brothers for Justice. I have a page on Twitter, and it's something that I'm going to be pushing and doing behind the scenes, and hopefully the BO organization and I can come together with something. I actually was told about the organization by a reverend that I know in North London called Nims Abunja, and he's been very helpful in advising me in my life about certain things. North London has a personal connection to me, as I lost someone in that area of London, so I'm very passionate about what happens in my community, especially in London and all the areas that I have graced the lands of. So in my opinion, I'm just very, very happy with how this event has gone tonight. The 9 minutes of silence was very powerful. I grew up in a Quaker background, so I definitely know the power of silence, that being the main worship of Quakerism. So it's just a very powerful moment right now, and I just feel very happy and overwhelmed, and just I feel very positive in moving forward. So just thank you everybody for being a part of this.
Thank you so much, Ellen. And I think that just highlighting the power of silence is so important. As amazing as David and Vivian and Steve and Athian and Chantelle and the other, I'm running out of the Belle, Albie were, for me, what always resonates for me is the 9 minutes and 29 seconds of silence. That's the most powerful thing. And it's also fabulous to know that people are now organizing so that one day, hopefully, we won't have to live through another 9 minutes. There won't be another case, whatever. So thank you very much.
Really quickly, Marcus, really quickly, sorry, I just forgot something. On the 9th of June in Lambeth, South London, there is an event that will be going on. Nimza Bunja, Baroness Philippa Stroud will be there also. So if you are someone that is positive about community activism and change in your community, be it you are a teacher, just somebody that is doing something that means something to you in your community, and you are passionate about what you are doing right now in South London, in Lambeth. If you know anybody who knows anybody, please spread the word and get them to come down. If you want to connect with me, like I said before, I have my organization that I am going to be pushing called Sisters and Brothers for Justice organization. It's called SBJ organization on Twitter, and you can connect with me through then, and I'll be posting more information on that event on the 9th of June in Lambeth. Okay. So thank you.
Awesome. Okay, I'm gonna wrap it up now. Thank you everybody just for joining me. I feel like I was part of a community and I didn't have to go through thinking about George Floyd alone, and it just gives me so much strength. So just thank you so much. I'm gonna leave. People can stay, I guess, but I'm gonna leave now. So thank you everybody. Thank you, Miranda. Thank you, Vivian. Thank you everybody. Okay, take care everybody. Bye bye.
Thank you all for joining. Be well, be blessed.